In this video, we're going to work through the new feature workflow. So we have an existing application and we're ready to add something new to it. Obviously, we know how we can change the code and get things working locally, but we want to make sure we can get those changes up on GitHub and Heroku as well. So we're going to work through the process once together, then you'll do it once on your own as the challenge for the video. What we're going to do together is add some text to the About page describing where the data is coming from. Then as your challenge for the video, you're going to go ahead and add some new data into the forecast that comes back. So over inside of the terminal, let's kick things off by starting up our local development server. When we're adding a new feature, we want to start by testing things out locally before shipping those code changes to the user. It's a bad idea to just write some code and deploy to production. We got to make sure it works first, even if it's a small change. So from the terminal, we're going to start up nodemon. Nodemon source/app.js, providing our extension list, js, HBS. Now, once this is up and running, we should be able to access our site from localhost 3000 once again, and this is still going to work like it did before, even though we made changes in the last video, getting the app ready for Heroku. Right here, if I search for Boston, I can still correctly get the weather. Our goal, though, is to make a change to the About page, so let's go ahead and pull that up. I'm going to close all open editors, and from the templates directory, I'll move into the views folder, and I'm going to open up about.hbs. All I'm going to do is add a single paragraph right here below the header and above the image. Inside of that paragraph, I'm going to put some text describing exactly what this website is all about. Right here, this site was created by, I'll put my name, you can put your name since you did indeed create it. It uses data from mapbox.com and darksky.net. So here, all I'm doing is adding a little bit of text into the application. Now, after making the change, the first thing we want to do is test things locally. I'll be saving the HBS file. I'll be refreshing the page and making sure that my text shows up. It does, which is great. Now that things are working locally, we can go through the process of getting those changes pushed to GitHub and to Heroku. So from the terminal, the first thing we need to do is commit the changes. Right here, I'm going to run git status to see exactly what's going on. We just have a single modified file. I'll use git add dot to add that to the staging area. Then I'll create my commit. Git commit with the M flag to provide the message for the commit. And I can use something like add about text. Now from here, we are going to create the commit, and now we need to push it up to GitHub so the code is backed up and up to date on that platform. And we're going to push it up to Heroku so our application gets redeployed. Right now, on the live app, if I go over to the About page, what do I have? I don't have that text. Let's fix it. Right here, first up, git push. This is equivalent to get push origin master. This is the command that's going to allow us to push up to the GitHub remote. Once we run this, all the code will be updated there. Next up, we're going to use git push Heroku master. This is going to push our latest commits up to Heroku, which will redeploy our application, allowing users to access the latest changes. This command should take just 15 seconds or so like it did before, and once it's done, we'll be able to view those latest changes over on the live website. All right, things are done over here. Let's test our work out. Over at github.com, I am going to give the repo page a refresh, and I can see my latest changes are indeed showing up. The templates directory was last updated a minute ago, which is indeed correct. And then I'm going to head over to the Heroku app URL and refresh the About page. When I do, my text is showing up. So there it is. That's all we need to do to add a new feature into the application and get it pushed up to GitHub and deployed to Heroku. Now it's your turn to do the same. I have some challenge comments outlining what I'd like you to do. To start, I am going to close down about.hbs and collapse the templates and public directory. in the utils folder, you're going to be making some changes to forecast.js. This is where we actually generate the forecast string that shows up in the browser. Your goal is to add some additional information inside of there. So right here we have the challenge comments. Goal: add new data to the forecast. Step 1, update the forecast string to include the new data. Step 2, you want to commit your changes after testing things locally. Then you're going to push your changes up to GitHub and deploy them to Heroku. And finally, you're going to test your work in the live application. So you should be able to crack open the Heroku URL, fetch the forecast for a given location, and see the new data you've included showing up. Now, if you're looking for some inspiration as to what to include, you could include some information about the temperature high and low for the day. This is available on that daily data object, which we actually used to grab the summary. So on here, there are other properties which you can explore to grab the high and low temperature. Then you could include something in the string saying the high today is 59 with a low of 38, though you'd use the real data values instead of 59 and 38. This is Andrew with an update for the WeatherStack API. I bet you thought you were done with these. Well, the good news is that this is the last lesson that needs to change in order to make the switch from dark sky to WeatherStack. So down below, we have our current weather data for the WeatherStack API. We don't have the temperature min and max like we do for dark sky, so for this challenge, go ahead and include something else. There's a lot of data here that we're not using. As an example, you could include the humidity. So our current forecast based on this data would start with the description. So it would start with overcast. From there, the next sentence would be, it is currently 10 degrees out. Then from there, the sentence after would be, it feels like 8 degrees out. And the final sentence could be something like, the humidity is 80%, period. So you could choose to include that as what you add for the challenge. So let's go back to the regular video and we'll continue on. I'll jump back in with another interruption showing you a potential solution once we get to that part of the lesson. All right, take some time to knock that out, adding that data or any other data you'd like to see in the forecast, test your work, and when you're done, come back and click play. How'd that go? Let's go ahead and get to it. The first thing I'm going to do is console.log out the daily data object so we can figure out exactly what data we're going to add to the output. So right here, I'll use console.log so we can take a look at what properties we have available. That'll be body.daily.data, grabbing the first day's data, exactly like we do down below right here for the summary. Now I'm going to save the forecast.js file. From the terminal, I'll use npm run start to start up the application, and then I'm just going to mess around with the app over inside of the browser. So here I have localhost 3000. What I'm going to do is just search for the weather for anywhere. I'll use Philadelphia, click search, and hopefully over here in the terminal, we do see that daily object, and that is exactly what we're getting. So right here, we have a few different options when it comes to exactly what we want to include. What we're going to do is include the temperature high and temperature low. So right here, I have temperature high with the value of 39.9 and temperature low with the value of 33.47. So these are the two properties we're going to include in our string message. To actually get this done, we can now go ahead and remove the console.log call, since we know what data we want to work with. And over inside of our callback call on line 20, all we're going to do is manipulate what exactly we are sending back. So we start off with the summary, and then we say it is currently X degrees out. From there, what I'm going to do is add the next piece of data. So what I'm going to say is the high today is followed by the temperature high with a low of the temperature low. Right here, let's go ahead and knock that out. Let's start with the high today is followed by a space. Now, what we're going to do here is inject some data. So to get that done, I will close off that string. I will open up the next one, and right here I'll use the plus operator to concatenate them together. Now I actually want to add some more data inside of there, so we'll add another plus operator, and right here we're going to set up the temperature high. So that's going to be body dot daily dot data, grabbing the first day's data, then dot followed by temperature high. Perfect. Now after that, what we're going to do is continue on with our string message, and we'll include the temperature low. So right here, I'll use the plus operator again to add a little more static text. So after the temperature high, I'll say space with a low of, then right here, this is where I'm going to put the temperature low. So once again, I'll use the plus operator to inject a dynamic value right inside. That'll be body dot daily dot data, grabbing the first day's data, and this time it is temperature low. Perfect. Now with this in place, we can wrap up with just a little more static text. So right here, after I show that temperature low, I'm going to add a period and a space just to make sure the two sentences are actually separated appropriately. This is Andrew with the last update ever related to the WeatherStack API. So right here, we have a potential solution for getting this done. Now here, I've taken my call to callback, and I've broken it up across multiple lines. So I'm still passing in undefined as the first argument, and I'm still passing in my string as the second one. I've even taken that string, and I've broken that up onto multiple lines as well. Now everything's the same except for the very end of the string. I added the humidity is, then I concatenate on the humidity value, and finally, I wrap things up with a %sign and a period. So if the humidity was 70%, that would read, the humidity is 70%. All right, so that's what you could have done to add the humidity. Let's jump back into the lesson. Now, once again, you could have made any sort of customization you liked. In this case, I chose to add the temperature high and temperature low. So at this point, we have completed step 1. We have updated the forecast string to include the new data. Let's go ahead and run the program one more time just to make sure it's showing up locally. If it is, we'll get it running in production as well. So I've started up the app. I'll refresh the browser, and I'm going to search for a location like Philly. Right here, it has fetched the weather, and I can see the high today is 39.9 with a low of 33.47. Fantastic. So now that we have this in place, let's continue on with the challenge. The next thing we need to do is commit our changes. So right here, I'll use Control-C to shut down the app and clear to clear the terminal output. Now up above, I have my challenge comments in place. I'm going to take a quick moment to remove those so they don't get committed. And with all of the files saved, we're now ready to add our commit. Let's go ahead and start with git status just to see what changes we have. Right here, we can see we have a couple of changes. Now, you have changes to files that I don't have here. I actually had to refilm this part of the lesson since it got lost when I was recording, and I had to update both of my API keys because they had changed. I had manually changed them. So you should only see a change to forecast.js here. Sorry for the confusion on that. Now that we have this in place, we want to commit our changes, so git add dot, followed by git commit with the M flag so we can provide our message. Right here, something like add high and low to forecast is going to get the job done. Now, once we've committed those changes, we want to do two things. One, we want to push them up to GitHub and make sure they show up there. And two, we want to push them to Heroku and test out the production version of our server. Down below in the terminal, to get that done, the first thing we're going to do is use clear to clear the terminal output. Next, we're going to use git push to push our changes up to GitHub right here. That should wrap up in just a couple of seconds. All of our changes have been pushed. And the next thing we're going to do after using clear is push all of our changes up to Heroku. I want to make sure that I can see the temperature highs and lows in the production version of our app as well. So right here, that's going to be git push followed by Heroku master. That's going to allow us to deploy the latest version of our project. Let's go ahead and run the command. Right here, it is attempting to deploy to Heroku, so it's going through the same process it's gone through before. And once this is done, we're just going to test things out over in the browser. I'm going to make sure that I do see that data. It looks like the new app is launching, and it launched successfully. So over in the browser, I'm going to refresh the production Heroku URL. Right here, I'll navigate over to the weather page and I'll get the weather for Austin. I'm going to fire off the search, and what do I see? I see my new data. The high in Austin is 76 with a low of 45, what I wouldn't do for those temperatures right now. All right, so there we go. We have a brand new feature added and deployed. That's where we're going to stop for this one. There's just one video left in this section, and it's coming up next, so stay tuned, and I'll see you then.